everyone, we're Sahan and Akane, climbing together in Indianapolis in the United States. In this video, we're gonna talk about what it takes to reach the V5 and V8 levels based on our own experience. We have been regularly climbing and training for about 6 years, and also actively learning to improve our knowledge and technique. Here, when I say we reach the V5 level, it means that you can send the V5 within a few sessions, rather than projecting it for a few months to get a first V5. So for the V5 in the context of this video, you might be able to flash a V3 and get V4 in a few attempts, but that would be challenging for a V5. Also, your maximum grade could be actually higher than V5 if you spend some months or seasons projecting it. But since we haven't really done that type of projecting, we're not gonna discuss that in that context. For us, the experience of reaching V5 was totally different from the experience of reaching V8, and I hope to outline the difference in detail in this video. Every climber's progression is different, but we believe there are some aspects of our experience that you can use to help your progress. First, I'm going to briefly summarize the difference between V5 and V8, and then dive into the details for each grade. To briefly summarize our climbing history, we started climbing in 2017 in a local gym and mainly bouldered indoor for the first few years. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to boulder outside until 2 years ago, and still now the closest high-quality bouldering destination is like 7 hours away, so we can't really project the high-grade problem effectively. Right now, when we go on a bouldering trip, we can get a V8 within the same trip, so we would say we have reached the V8 level in the context of this video. After 1 or 2 years of climbing, we started getting V5s in the gym, and I was very happy every time. Sahan progressed faster, and he probably reached the V5 level earlier than me, but we really enjoyed the process of breaking into the new level. At that point, we started learning about climbing physiology and training, and did some basic training as well. We couldn't progress as quickly as we wanted to, mainly because COVID happened and we didn't have access to the gym for a while. But as we returned to the climbing gym, we started training more seriously and tried to go outdoor climbing more often. In our experience, reaching V5 was more about climbing regularly and building up the overall climbing experience. By regularly climbing, we improved our overall fitness, learned more techniques, and we also tried to climb in different gyms to experience different holds and styles. Also, we did some basic training. For example, when I started climbing, I couldn't do a single pull-up, so I regularly did assisted pull-ups. We also did some antagonist exercises, but not as extensively as what we did for the V8 level. On the other hand, reaching V8 required more climbing-specific training. As we covered in our previous videos, increasing strength, power, and endurance was critical to reach this level. For this, we had to dedicate some time to training rather than climbing the whole time in the gym. We would spend time in front of hangboards, campus boards, system boards, and other fitness equipment instead of just randomly bouldering in the gym. This requires more commitment. Also, we had to be more aware of our technique. We learned how and when to use heel hooks, toe hooks, drop knees, or other techniques by watching beta videos and other strong climbers. Reaching V8 level, therefore, requires more strength, commitment, knowledge, and better technique. I'd like to note again that this is based on our experience, and some of you might have different experiences. Nevertheless, the general transition from improving the overall fitness to more climbing-specific exercises should be more or less applicable to a wide range of climbers. In the following sections, I will describe our experience and approach in more details. As I briefly discussed earlier, reaching V5 does not necessarily require intensive climbing-specific training. You can reach this level relatively quickly by accumulating more climbing experience and improving your overall fitness. That being said, it does require some consistency, and you might want to change some of your habits too, which leads to the first tip. Climb regularly. Every sport requires regular involvement to progress, and climbing is no different. Ever since we started climbing, we've been climbing at least twice or 3 times a week, either in the gym or outside. Establishing this consistency is an important first step to reach V5. While this might be an easy job for some people, it might be challenging for others, depending on the type of work you do, family obligation, or other hobbies or activities you're involved in. I've had some situations like that before. I have skipped my regular climbing sessions before because work was too busy, but I don't do that these days anymore. Well, I can't do that because I sometimes carry Sahan's stuff, so I have to go to the gym to hand it to him. Otherwise, he can't climb. So creating a situation where you can't cancel or skip the climbing session might help you. Once you establish the habit of climbing regularly, the next step is to improve your overall fitness. By regularly climbing, you will automatically get more fit for climbing, but you can also do some basic exercises to help you. For example, improving your aerobic system by running, improving your flexibility with yoga, and building up your upper body strength through exercises like pull-ups and push-ups. In addition, you can stay healthy through healthy diet and good sleep. This is very boring advice, but you know, these little things add up. The third tip is to climbing different gyms and explore outdoor climbing too if possible. You learn so much by experiencing different settings, different rocks, and by meeting with different climbers. Experiencing new things opens up your potential and teaches you new skills and techniques. Of course, you can still incorporate some basic climbing-specific exercises. For example, in addition to the basic upper body strength exercises that I mentioned, we did some antagonist exercises to strengthen our shoulders, elbows, and wrists. This is effective to prevent injuries that are common among beginning climbers, such as golfer's elbow. If you'd like to know more, I highly recommend you watch one of our previous videos focusing on antagonist training. You can also start training your fingers. V5 problems can have crimps or other finger-intensive moves, so training your fingers can get you closer to the V5 level, but we recommend you start little by little. We sometimes see beginning climbers in the gym hanging on a hangboard with so much weight, barely engaging their shoulders. That scares us. Finger training is effective only if you do that right. Otherwise, it only injures your fingers or shoulders. If you never used the hangboard before, start hanging with no weights. Start with a bigger edge, gradually add weights, and shift to smaller edges. Never forget to engage your shoulders. You can follow some protocols online or in training books. While reaching V5 is ultimately possible without any committed or targeted climbing-specific training, it might be a different story for V8. Climbing is composed of so many delicate aspects, including mental aspects, skills and techniques, mobility and stability, as well as specific strength and power. For most people, when it comes to reaching V8, these various aspects need to be addressed and trained. For that, you need to allocate good amount of time on training. You can spend every climbing session targeting and working on some of these areas, but some aspects may need prerequisites. So here is the first tip. Understand where you are in climbing. Before jumping onto random exercises you see online, evaluate yourself before planning any specific training. Ask yourself, what is the weakness you need to work on, and why do you think that's your weakness? Does it happen often on your climb? How can you address that? Here is an example. Do you see yourself powering out or not being able to complete a climb that has more than 6 moves in it? Then you might want to focus on power endurance. Or you see yourself not being able to pull or lock off on a crimp. Then that might come from the weakness of your forearm or finger strength or lock-off strength. Record or document your climb and think about it afterwards. Do you find yourself falling on this type of route often? If the answer is yes, then why do you think you fall on that move? Is the move something you've never tried before, or is it due to getting fatigue? By thinking about the route, you can certainly find out your weakness and create a short-term or long-term training plan. Then it's time to focus on some blocks of strength and power training, which can help any climber to climb harder. In our case, we spent 30 to 40% of our climbing session focusing on some specific climbing exercises targeting different muscle groups and energy system. The unfortunate reality is that ramping up a training plan too quickly can cause a serious injury and prevent you from progressing. It would be helpful to imagine it like an investment plan, like 401k in the US. You allocate little by little, and over a long period of time, you get wealthier. So by investing in your training and climbing, you will certainly reach your goal over a few seasons, because all your weekly structured training over seasons and years will add up. It is much easier and faster progress from V5 to V8 than from V8 to V10. For example, consider an average climber who has previously worked on his or her stability and mobility and can do up to 10 or 15 bodyweight pull-ups. He or she will notice substantial change in maximum pulling strength by doing some weighted pull-ups for the first time. In general, climbing harder grades than V5 demands higher maximum strength in pull-up muscles as well as in fingers and forearms. We've had slow but progressive training plan working on these muscle groups, which significantly helped us climb harder. If you'd like to know more specific topics about strength and power training, we've made a video before, so I highly recommend you check it out. That being said, do not forget about working on your general fitness, stability, and mobility before or during your specific strength and power training. General fitness training will help you bulletproof your muscles for more intense training. Having strong shoulders, cores, and lats will help you not to get injured during your training cycle. It is important that you have an effective training plan. Having a 2-hour targeted planned session is much more effective than spending 5 hours of non-structured climbing or training. Create a specific plan ahead of time for each climbing session and know it beforehand. Being disciplined in your 2-hour training plan is much more effective than a long session, which requires more time to recover. To see your progress, we found it helpful to have benchmarks. Benchmarks can be a system board bouldering problems, hanging on a particular edge size, or what's the most weight you can add to do one complete pull-up. By doing the same benchmark before and after your training program, you can see how much you progressed over time. For example, 2 years ago in January, I could do one complete pull-up with 20 pounds. After some strength training, it increased by 10 pounds by the end of the same year. You can also climb the same system board bouldering problems to see how it feels. I'm pretty sure after some power and strength training, the same problem feels easier than before. Finally, the V8 level requires more refined and efficient technique. To improve our technique, we watch climbing videos a lot. Either it's mellow YouTube videos or IFSC World Cups or just the random strong climbers on Instagram. Watching strong climbers will give you new perspectives and help you open up possibilities. After watching many climbing footages, especially of short climbers for me, I learned to pay more attention to lock-off and foot techniques, like high feet and drop knee, than just relying on my power and jumping for it. In this video, I talked about the difference between reaching to the V5 and V8 levels. To summarize, reaching the V5 level is more about climbing regularly and improving your overall fitness. And it shouldn't be too difficult for most people to reach that level. However, further advancing to V8 level requires more commitment and specific training. Here, we use V5 and V8 to highlight the two different levels in climbing, but grading is pretty subjective and everybody's experience is different, but we think the general experience should be more or less applicable to many climbers. Everyone reaches a certain level after climbing a few years, maybe hitting a plateau there, and further advancing to the next level requires more commitment and targeted training. We hope it was helpful for you to get an idea of progression over different levels, especially if you're relatively new to climbing. We're planning to make more videos in the future about more specific topics, so follow us and stay tuned. Thank you for watching the video. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel.